Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 4 of your Reaching and Teaching Diverse Learners. So I am going to give you an overview for this week, kind of help you find where things are and talk a little bit about some expectations. So if you recall, this link right here will take you to our learning community space. So if there's questions that you have, feel free to post them there. Also, there is, our course outline. So you can use this link to access the outline that'll tell you what's due this week. So here we are, Module 4. We're going to talk about the impact of segregation. So you're going to read Chapter 2, pages 48 to 69. And then there's 2 articles, Segregation in America and Moving from Segregation to Diversity. And then what's due this week are your video notes. You have a week 4 quiz. And then you're actually going to submit your slide deck for your educational profile project. So you have your role established. Now you should start researching your role. And if you have questions about it, I want you to go to our educational profile project link here, and then go to the project instructions and resources, go to the instructions and grading, and then there is a recording of an actual example. So before you get into your PowerPoint, it would be really helpful for you to watch this so you can see what your PowerPoint should look like and what information should be included. So if you haven't watched this, make sure that you do that. Again, here's an overview of the instructions too that you can watch just to kind of jog your memory if you've forgotten exactly what is required. So this week, week 4, we're going to click here and go to the module overview and the learning objectives and the tasks for this week. You can take a look at the objectives that are going to be addressed this week. And then here's the required readings. You're going to watch the videos below. And I also just reminded you again in the task summary to go ahead and review the example of the educational profile project. And then here's what's due this week. Your video notes, the week 4 quiz, and then your slide deck for your educational profile project. Okay, this is where you'll find the links to the additional articles, including what your textbook. You're going to read chapter 2, but then you need to also read these 2 separate articles. And then for your video notes, you guys are doing such a phenomenal job with that too. I have really enjoyed reading your video notes. You're capturing really important concepts from each of the videos. What I would love though is if you, in addition to that, share some thoughts that you have about what you're watching. So again, this week, you're going to share 2 things that stood out to you and explain why or how this information is important for future teachers to be aware of. We're going to be talking about segregation, so it is important to think about how does segregation impact education. And so we're going to start really digging into some complex topics that may on the surface not seem like they have a huge impact on education, but actually really do. So I'm going to start challenging you to think about how these policies and practices that seem so separate from education actually really do impact the learning of children in our public education system. So the next thing is thinking about where and how it applies to educational policies and practices. Okay, so you're going to watch this video, Whites Only Suburbs, and how the New Deal shut out Black home buyers. You're going to watch housing segregation and redlining in America. You are going to watch another housing segregation and redlining, and then the segregation myth. So you're going to watch all 4 of these. And then again, write down the titles, share 2 things that stood out to you from the clip, and then explain why and how this information is important to education. So you might have to take a moment to really think critically about how this intersects with education in ways that can disenfranchise students or actually benefit students. So be thinking about that as you watch the videos. And then you'll upload your notes here. Here's the week 4 quiz. You have two attempts to take the quiz. And then here is where you're going to upload your profile project slides. So again, this is a group activity in that you're actually going to present your PowerPoint to a small group of your peers, but you're not building the PowerPoint together. That's not what this is. This is an individualized assignment. The reason that we put you in groups is so that everyone in your group can learn about other roles than the ones that they research themselves. And so because we're not in an in-person class, you can't present to the whole class. We put you in small groups so that you can do it that way. This assignment is required as part of the clinical experiences for SPE 250, and you cannot pass this class without completing this project. So there's 2 projects that must be completed to meet the clinical experiences requirement. It's the educational profile project and the field experience project. Those 2 projects meet the 20 hours of clinical experiences for this course. And both of them are focused on, exploring education as a field. And so they have to be completed in order for you to successfully complete this course. So make sure that you prioritize those and that you're spending enough time to put together a high quality project. So that is what we have for this week. I did want to kind of draw your attention to some things related to last week's content and thinking about culture and how the CMU dispositions and the ethical practices show up in what we do. And so I have a couple of scenarios I want you to think about, but I'm probably going to post that as a separate video a little bit later on. Or I might just upload it as a document. I'm not sure how I want to do that, but a lot of you wrote in your journal reflections, which also I've really enjoyed reading, but a lot of you wrote about how, well, 2 things kind of stood out to me. One was a lot of you wrote that an area that you'd like to work on is being able to be more aware of social justice or injustice in your communities, but also nationwide and globally. And that's really important. But a lot of you mentioned how right now that's really difficult. And for your own mental health, you've had to cut down on the amount of news that you listen to. And I understand that at my core, I completely understand that. And I too have had to be very mindful of what I access and when. But what I wanted to say is that that really lines up with the concept of privilege, right? That for some of us, it is the ultimate privilege to be able to limit how much news we are internalizing and kind of hide from it, because what that means is that it's not impacting us yet. At least we think it's not impacting us. So we can kind of shut the world out a little bit right now. But I just want you to be mindful that, of course, I want you to take care of your mental health. And of course, I want you to be really cautious about what you're consuming. But I also, in that same breath, want you to be aware of the fact that many of the families that we work with as educators don't have that privilege, and that we have to be there and present to support them. So we're not always going to be able to minimize our engagement with the news and with society as a whole. So it's one of the challenges of teaching, I think, or being in human services at all. When we are embedded in human service fields, we have to be aware of things that are happening because they impact the families that we work with. And so it's just one of the challenges of being in human services, is that we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And yes, of course, we're very concerned about teachers' mental health and secondary trauma and all of the things that make teaching really difficult. So just know that I hear you, I see you, I am right there with you in understanding how difficult things are right now. I think it's also important to note that much of the content that we're covering in this class can be connected to current events, and we need to be really thoughtful about that as well. So yeah, I just wanted you to know that I feel you. And so as I'm grading your assignments and I'm kind of putting things together for this class, I want you to know that I am deeply thoughtful and concerned about all of you and what is happening and how you're managing the expectations of school and your programs, your jobs, your families. Things are really heavy. So I am thinking of you and I'm concerned about you. So yeah, I just wanted to say that out loud to you so that you know you're not alone. Okay. Again, so I will probably upload a shorter video a little later in the week that you can take a look at. I wanted to just give some examples of how we show up when we're talking about things related to privilege and bias. A lot of you asked, like, you know, how do I prevent my implicit bias from becoming explicit bias? So a lot of you asked really great questions. And so I want to offer you a couple of scenarios that kind of will, I think, help illuminate that a little bit more for you. So I will send out an email with a link to the video so that you don't have to go to Blackboard to find it, but I'll send it to you. So if you have any questions, let me know. Do not forget to upload your project plan from your group. I need to know what day and time you're planning to meet to share your presentations. And one of the things I would also recommend is that you do a dry run before you actually meet live to record your session, and make sure you can work out any of the kinks before you actually have to do it, because the last thing you want to do is get through all of the presentations in your group and then find out for whatever reason it didn't record or didn't work. So I would strongly recommend that you take 5 minutes to hop online, make sure everything's working, everyone can get into the host's room, even record it to make sure that the recording works, everybody's microphones work. Practice sharing your screen so when you're presenting your PowerPoint, it goes smoothly. All right, so if you have any questions this week, please do reach out. Have a great week.